I will be making a video very soon on today's big political turnaround, the big reshuffle by the Prime Minister, Angela Rayner's resignation, etc., etc. That's a big news story. It's been in the headlines all day, so I'll be covering that probably in my next video. And I will say that I'm going to be rolling out a number of videos, probably not all tonight, but certainly in the next day or two, because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. So bear with me. Some news items just get a lot more attention than others, and it's understandable. I mean, for instance, if I was an editor, I would prioritise today's political events. But there are some things you feel, whoa, that should really be a big story, and it isn't. And I'm going to cover one just purely for the reason that I think it deserves more attention. Because if we, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but if we live in a world whereby lives should be seen as equal, then all tragedies should be treated in an equal way. I mean, Lisbon, the Portuguese capital, saw a tragedy this week where one of the funicular vehicles crashed and 16 died, including three British nationals. It's a tragedy and it deserves attention. But there's also been a huge disaster in Sudan on a much bigger scale, up to 1,000 people killed in a landslide, and that's what I want to talk about. This is the report in the I newspaper. The report is by Khalid Abdelaziz. So I'm just going to read this out and share my thoughts a little bit. An armed group that controls part of Western Sudan pleaded yesterday for international help recovering bodies and rescuing residents from torrential rain after at least 1,000 people were killed in a landslide that wiped out a mountain village. Only one person survived the destruction in the village of Tarsin in the mountainous Jebel Mara area of the Darfur region, said the Sudan Liberation Movement Army. SLMA, which has long controlled and governed an autonomous portion of Jebel Mara, appealed to the United Nations and international aid agencies to help collect the bodies of victims, including men, women and children. The SLMA has remained neutral in the battle between the main enemies in Sudan's civil war, the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The two foes are fighting over control of the Al-Fashir nearby capital of, fighting over control of Al-Fashir, nearby capital of North Darfur State, which is under siege from the RSF and has suffered famine. The 2-year civil war has left more than 500,000 of Sudan's population facing crisis levels of hunger and driven millions from their homes, leaving them especially exposed to Sudan's damaging yearly floods. Sudan's army-controlled government expressed its condolences and willingness to assist. And then people wonder why we have a migrant crisis. When you're coming from a part of the world like that, it might give some indication, if you were in their shoes. This is a huge disaster, and it's the biggest landslide I think anywhere in the world since the big landslide in Papua New Guinea last year, which got a lot of attention in Australia because Australia, as the nearest major developed country, often assists in those sort of relief operations. I mean, 1,000 people killed. Even if that's not the exact figure, even if it's 500 or 1,500, if that happened in Europe, it would be a massive story. There's just no question about it. Now, to be fair, some of that is access to journalists, so it's not always a case of journalists not caring about the story. Sometimes, particularly in countries like Sudan, which are effectively failed states, there is a limit on how much coverage can go on within the borders. So that is true. It's the same with the DRC and other African countries. But that's a major natural disaster. Incidentally, the other big natural disaster in the last few weeks, Afghanistan earthquake, the tolls now hit 1,400. I also have a report on that, which I'll just briefly show you. So it's two major disasters in two of the poorest countries in the world, Sudan and Afghanistan. They'll get coverage, but I don't know, there's something sad about the lack of consistency when it comes to human tragedy. And like I say, sometimes this is due to accessibility. I mean, in the case of Afghanistan, it isn't going to be easy for foreign journalists to get into Taliban controlled Afghanistan. But people wonder why people from these countries want to get out. I mean, is it any wonder when you have such internal strife and such miserable living conditions? There's no other way to put it. Um, anyway, my purpose for this video is just to draw attention to what is a major disaster. It should be a wake up call for the warring parties in Sudan civil war. If they care about the Sudanese people, they will put their fighting aside and prioritize the Sudanese people. I mean, Sudan's one of those countries that just seems like it's plagued. It went through two very brutal civil wars, 1955 to 1971, if I've got that right. The first Civil War, and the second Civil War even bigger, 1983 to 2005. And I think this could be seen as the third Civil War beginning in 2023. The Battle of Khartoum is seen as one of the biggest battles of modern times, along with the Battle of Bakhmut in Ukraine. And it's actually, I think it's being called the longest battle of the 21st century. The Battle of Khartoum, it went on for months and months and caused thousands of deaths. That's the situation. But in both cases, in Afghanistan and Sudan, you have extremely poor countries, failed states that have been, in the case of Afghanistan, recovering from years of war. In the case of Sudan, going through, a very brutal war. So I think the onus should be on the authorities. In the case of Sudan, they have called for aid, but if they really care about the Sudanese people, they would put aside the fighting to assist these people. It's awful. I'm a little bit suspicious about the report of one survivor. I'd be very surprised about that. I mean, it's only one person in an entire village. I suppose it's possible. But anyway, stay tuned. I'll be talking more about domestic politics here and other stories. But yeah, that's one of the worst landslides anywhere in the world in recent years. Like I say, last year Papua New Guinea also saw a major landslide, which hundreds were killed and possibly more, possibly even thousands. We'll probably never know the true death toll of that one. But I do think it's tragic that often these things happen in the world's poorest countries. Like I say, if it happened in France or the United States or Japan, it would be a major, major story.